Welcome. Nate Amidon here, Jared Grove, both consultants in the Agile space and also former Air Force officers and pilots. So today we're going to do a video, part of our like transitioning to transitioning veterans to Agile video. We're going to talk about retrospectives because that's a big deal in the Agile world. So we're going to talk a little bit about them, and then honestly, we're gonna talk about how much it's like what we did in the military.
Yep.
It's very, very close. So, first, let me just set the stage on what the retrospective is. So, in the Scrum guide, there's a bunch of ceremonies. All right. And so, in a Scrum sprint, you'll start with a sprint planning. You figure out what you're going to do. And then you'll do daily stand ups every day, check in. At the end, you'll do a sprint review where you'll review everything that you completed. Hopefully, you're doing a demo of some sort showing actual working code. And then you do a retrospective. And the idea of the retrospective is a meeting to inspect and adapt to try to get better as a team.
Yeah. I mean, and as you kind of talked about, it's something that you're wanting to do like right at the end of the sprint because the goal is of all agile is like how do we learn? How do we become better? How do we build that culture? And the retrospective is one of the key tenets of building that culture of continuous learning.
Right. And most of Scrum is really based on feedback loops, right? We want to get feedback from what we're building, if it actually works. We want to release it. We want to get customer feedback in a demo. And the retrospective is like process feedback. It's like, how can we
Yep.
get better as a team? And how do we identify areas that, we can make things run more smooth?
Yeah, and I love how you call that like how do we get better as a team? Like
Yep.
the team functioning and improving is what's going to deliver more value. So it's not how do you get better at code or how do you get better at communicating, but like how did the we work together? How did the processes that affect all of how our team works together, how does that affect us delivering value? And is there anything that we can take from that, dive deep, figure out some root causes, and then make a small, incremental change over the next 2 weeks or a couple weeks after that to see if that actually makes the desired effect that we want.
Right. And and one thing you hit on there that's super important is like an actionable change,
Yep.
something that we can actually do to improve. Um, and uh, and so a lot of times I'll see retrospectives where it's just a complaint fest, and that's great.
There's valid. That's valid.
Yeah,
It's fun
it's
sometimes.
good. All right, but we should also be trying to identify things we can do to improve it. All right, so
Yeah,
so the
definitely with that.
Scrum Master really runs the retrospective. And we were talking about this before, like as pilots in the Air Force, this is the exact same thing as a flight debrief.
Yeah, and for those who weren't pilots in the Air Force, like after every flight, we would
Yeah.
get done, and we would immediately, after bringing all of our stuff inside, coming into the crew debrief room or wherever we're at on the road, we would get together as the whole team, the whole crew, and we would do a debrief, and we would walk through what went well, what didn't well, and try to learn so that the next time that we flew, we were better and more effective out there.
And so I think we should even just talk a little bit about how to do a good flight debrief. And that's
Yeah.
going to be like it's going to be the same principles and the same tactics for yeah, for an Agile or a Scrum retrospective.
Yeah, and I think number one thing with starting a good flight brief or a good retrospective is it's on cadence, right? You do it right after you fly. Like you don't sit there and wait 3 weeks after it. You don't do it the next day. You try to do it after when everything's fresh. So when you remember the calls and all the mistakes you went or the shout outs you want to give people, the stuff they did good, but you do it. Just like in a retrospective, I want to do it at the end of the sprint. I don't want to wait 4 or 5 days where new stuff starts to happen, new problems, new things, and then we forget and everything becomes mushy. Like I want to kind of do this on cadence and I want to have a set time that we do it. So I think that's probably the number one way that how do I run a effective flight brief is I do it and I do it after I fly.
Yeah, and so when I Scrum Master teams, it's a recurring event, right? It's on the
Yep.
calendar. Everyone shows up. It's what we do, right? The other thing I like, and I think the Air Force and Scrum kind of talk about this differently, but it's kind of the same, which is this idea of like psychological safety. This idea that that Scrum will call it the prime directive. And essentially, what it says is, look, everyone's trying to do their best. Okay. And so don't take these things personal. And the idea is like, but be open and like feel comfortable to just to identify things, even if it's going to make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's also what makes a good flight brief is going into a flight brief, and there was always a saying like there's no rank in the cockpit, there's no rank in there. Was everyone being able to have it open? So the lowest ranking person on the plane, the co-pilot or the boom operator or the load, could sit there and say something that the pilot needed to fix. And so I think that's a key way to build out that psychological safety. Also, when I ran, going back to like being a scrum master or running a flight brief, I always, to get people to feel safe and open up about what they screwed up, I sometimes would talk about what I did wrong.
Mhm.
So if I was flying a mission and I knew I came in hot, like 10 knots over, the threshold to land, I would call it out. I wouldn't hide it. I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, I messed up, guys. Sorry. Great call out from this one. I'll do the same thing in retros when I was a scrum master, where I'd be like, hey, apologize. I missed this. We were a little bit late on getting, this product information. It was a late add to scope. I saw how that affected, here's what I'm thinking of that type of stuff. Get people's feedback. It's kind of open, like, hey, everyone deserves to, kind of talk about it so people don't feel like they're getting something always pointed at that they screwed up and they need to improve. We all need to improve. The team needs to improve.
Yeah. And I try to do that. I try to do that. Sorry. I try to do that too. Like I try to be the first one to say what I messed up. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just hard because I flew really well.
No, I understand. I understand. But I think that's one thing is that's how, if you're going to build psychological safety, it starts with somewhere. And sometimes the team may just saying, hey, we should be open at retro. It may not happen right away, and that's normal. And so the more that you can ask questions to really bring out what people thought of stuff, just like I would do in a flight brief. What did you think of like the landing? What did you think of how we could do better?
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to do pointed questions. Same thing with the retrospectives. Sometimes you got to be out there.
And you
The
got
other
to
thing I
remember,
think about with like kind of on like retros and flight briefs is having some, I think a good way if you're new to this is having some structured way to do reflection. So with flight briefs, they always gave us a checklist, like for new aircraft commanders, and they'd be like, "Hey, here's your thing. Talk about, pre-flight, talk about takeoff, talk about in-flight, talk about this, go over risks." You had this kind of way that you could walk through it, so it gave the team an idea of where to kind of focus, like you said. So they're not just complaining, but they're focusing on areas they can improve.
right,
And I think some good retros, like you can use, there's great formats out there
right.
that will also help you kind of structure those discussions so you can actually end on some like actionable stuff.
Yeah. Because it's really hard to just get on a flight debrief or a retrospective to just open it up and say, who's got things, right? Because
What can we
no one,
do? What do you want
right.
to improve?
Yeah. Yeah. Because no one's gonna like a lot of times people aren't gonna lead out and just start getting information out.
No.
Right? And people can be more introverted. They're not used to it. They're not in the the military has a culture of this, I think, with flight debriefs and after action reports, and this is kind of embedded in all the services. But yeah, so the goal really is to just try to extract good things out of the team.
Yeah.
So if you're with the team and you're doing retrospectives every sprint, every 2 weeks, right? It's just on cadence, 26 a year. It is good to try to mix it up. But ultimately, we're really just trying to pull things out that we can improve on as a team.
Yeah. And I think it goes back into of that's a great question of trying to pull stuff out. That's what I always look for, just like in a flight debrief or retrospective. If people are starting to be quiet, that is like a little bit of alarm going off that I'm like, we need to tweak some stuff. Either we're not asking the right questions, this format, this checklist is stale, we
Yep.
need to do some stuff. And so that's kind of like when you want to switch it up. Like just doing the same thing over, you're gonna get some, atrophy on communication and that. So I think that's an important thing is be listening to how well are people communicating.
Yep. Yeah, and as a scrum master, you should be paying attention during the sprint too, for those things that you can bring up. Because sometimes it's super apparent what you need to talk about. Okay, like a huge production bug, huge miss on timeline, and then in the flying world, like we'll know when there's the big thing we need to discuss.
Yeah,
right?
so if I shut down an engine on accident, never happened by the way, but say I did, um, Nate, do you want to talk about like the pre-flight and the takeoff and how my landings were? Probably not. Like we should probably talk about like what led to shutting off an engine in flight, which once again did not happen, but
Okay,
um,
if it did, Jared, I'll learn.
we would talk about it. We would learn and not do it again.
Yeah. Well, and it's so valuable to try to continually get better. And it's not just valuable for you, right? I mean, it is obviously for you and your team, but you can learn things and share them across the organization. So so like here, do like a flying example. I was once doing a personnel airdrop, right? And we at a minute the lights in the back where the jumpers are go from red to yellow, and
Okay.
then when they're supposed to jump out of the plane, they go to green. And so we were flying, and at the 1 minute point, one of the jumpers just left. Okay. So they were way off the drop zone, ended up just like steering themselves to a freeway with cars, super dangerous. Okay. And so we were like, everything stopped. We flew back. And the first thing we did was like flight
Talk
debrief
about
time. Let's figure this
it.
out. And
You
what we
didn't go home and just be like, we'll figure this out tomorrow.
yeah, took my wings off and just said it was a good run, guys. And well, so what happened in that debrief is we realized the jump master was used to flying on C-130s versus
Okay.
C-17s. And for C-130s, the light only changes at jump time. And so
Gotcha.
they were looking for the light to change versus it to change from yellow to green. So, okay, so that came out and that all of a sudden got briefed, to the entire squadron, right? And this new thing where it's like, hey, when we are briefing jump masters, we let them know that this isn't a
Yep.
C-130, this is a C-17. And those types of things only happened because we did a flight debrief.
Yeah. And I love that. Like I said, it is also just like a good flight debrief or a good retro. It is a way to raise like awareness with the team, possibly outside of the organization. I mean, if we had something and we start to do it, like you may realize like, oh, this isn't just going to affect us. This will affect this other product team that also releases that way. And I think that's great. Like we want to raise awareness so that we continue to get better, but also the people around us and and how
Yeah,
they also get better. So that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing to say on retrospectives, because if you're transitioning out of the military, you've done these types of things before, but uh, don't only just talk about the negative stuff. Give
Yeah.
yourself some time to do, hey, who did really well? Or sometimes I'll have them call out, all right, like call out something that went awesome, right? And focusing in on those things can provide that positive feedback, right? It's not always just negative feedback.
And that's huge. I mean, when I taught pilot training, we had to do debriefs after everything with students. And I
Right.
would tend like to say those tend to be a little bit more feedback, but I will tell you, like, people constantly having to come back after every flight and all they hear about is what went wrong and all the things and the way they could get better because they did a loop 5 knots slow or they almost crashed us that like tears someone down and I'll tell you they didn't actually get stronger and better. And so really celebrating the wins and also like you said talking about the good things but extracting how they can take what they did good there and maybe bring it to an area that we haven't thought about yet. And so that's just like in a flight debrief. If someone was really good on airspeed control and the pattern, then I would try to bring those techniques of like, hey, you did these things and you did an awesome cross check. We need to do the same thing in the pattern when we're about to do a loop and you won't get slow. Like, same thing I would do in a retrospective.
Right.
We did really awesome on this piece of code that we just developed and released. How can we take that to the next one? Oh, let's make this a best practice. So I love that. Focus on the good, but not just lauds. Like, what can we take from that and learn?
Yeah. And so, look, I think we can wrap it up here
Yeah.
because retrospectives are obviously really important in the agile world. They're something that you need to know about and know when they fit into the Scrum cadence. But honestly, if you're transitioning from the military, you've been in these and you've done these before, and really you can take that experience to help build high performing teams. And that's really what we're trying to do when we're coming in as a Scrum Master, product owner, Agile coach. Like we're really building these teams that communicate better, have psychological
Yep.
safety, they understand each other, and those things, even though they sound like fuzzy, actually turn into tangible results because
Yeah.
people are more comfortable to talk to each other, and it's a perpetual positive feedback loop.
Nope. Agreed.
So good luck out there, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Sweet. Clear skies.
Cheers, guys. Later.